Yeah, well, I have to ask. The audience wants to know what are your thoughts on XRP and how you think it'll do
XRP has literally been stuck
for
between
4 years? Yeah,
50 to 58. And I don't know what Brad Garlinghouse and his team need to do to get it to get unstuck. Part of it is that they sell a lot, right, to fund lots of other things, and so they're buying good assets, but they've been selling a billion ish of XRP every 6 months, or sometimes more, sometimes less. So that's supply. The the ecosystems that do the best have all their supply already distributed, right? Nobody owns more than 1% of Bitcoin, right? Or maybe there's a guy who owns 2% or something, but or of Ethereum. So there are no giant concentrations. Where in XRP, Ripple Labs, the company still owns, I think, roughly 50% of the total XRPs, and so that and you see that with what happened with WorldCoin. There's so much supply, and it's hard to rally through that supply. The markets have gotten smarter about it, and so again, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana already distributed, right? So there's not this giant distribution coming.
So two-part question. You kind of mentioned that the deficit, paraphrasing, is kind of good for Bitcoin's price, right? Like as long as we kind of are owing trillions of dollars, then that, because I'm assuming that's the hedge of inflation, right? That's not right.
100%.
Okay, so that's tied to that. That's interesting. But
so
then also,
if Trump gets the deficit to come way down and debt to GDP starts coming down, well, that's a really good thing. And then I think you'll see Bitcoin not go up as fast. I'm just skeptical that a president who ramped up the deficit last time when he was in power before COVID is going to see the light. And I think it's hard to, because the only way you're really going to get the deficit down is cut Medicare, cut Social Security. And those are like really hard things politically to deal with. And how are you going to cut them? You're going to means test them so rich people aren't going to get them. You're going to take the age when one can retire from 65 to 68 for some people, 70 the people that haven't been born yet. That's hard medicine for people. But think about our budget. Our budget is $6.75 trillion right now. 57% of it is Medicare, Social Security, and interest payments.
Yeah.
Then you throw the military in, probably another close to 20%, and you're at 75% before you even start talking about, so you have 25% of the budget to deal with when you think you can make cuts. And Trump's going to cut taxes, not raise taxes. And so it's just hard to see where this deficit is going to collapse.
Yeah.
No, it's a fact. So one thing I want to say is that Bitcoin, you've obviously been in Bitcoin for a long time. So the vicious cycles of pullbacks, and so
painfully so.
Yeah, the crypto winters, right? Are we out of that phase and it's just a normal investment cycle where we just have pullback? We don't have 50, 40, 70% pullback, or could we potentially see another drastic pullback?
I think we won't go back below 72,000 for the next 18 months. I just don't think we will. We've spent so much time in that, consolidating new highs. We took the high out. I think we measure 97,000 is our next target, 100,000, and then we might get into a range between 180 for a while before it goes up again. But if you go back below the election day, something went wrong.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to get really nervous.
What do you think? No, go ahead, Troy.
I was gonna say one of the things that people, obviously they've watched this phenomenon for the past 5 to 6 years very closely. Maybe they got involved, maybe they didn't. But one of the things that holds people out is the trust. And so you brought up stable coins. Obviously, USDT leads in that space. What are your thoughts around USDT, and is there another stable coin on the rise that can help bring or encourage that trust in this space?
Well, listen, so Tether is, the dominant coin for a lot of reasons, right? Chinese moving money offshore, people using it for liquidity, but Tether doesn't share the interest difference between where treasury bills are and zero with anybody, right? It's one of the great businesses I've ever seen. So the team that owns Tether make a fortune. Howard Lutnick, Trump's head of transition, is very involved with Tether. He facilitates their buying and selling of treasuries. So it's a big business for him. So he's got a vested interest in keeping that dog alive. Jeremy Allaire with USDC, he's the U.S. based regulated stable coin. He keeps most of those profits himself. So he's fighting for his, regulation. This is a national security discussion, right? Right now, stable coins they're like the 15th largest owner of treasuries in the world, right? We issue treasuries to fund our debt. I would tell you 4 years from now, they'll be the third or the fourth largest owner of treasuries in the world, right? And so if you're the Secretary of Treasury, who's responsible for funding this giant deficit, do you want someone who controls $1 trillion maybe of treasuries to be regulated in the US? Or do you want to be sitting in Europe or in Montenegro or, who can always say, hey, I'm selling them, right? I think you're going to see stablecoin legislation that really favors the home turf because it's national security. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have foreign ownership, but I'm guessing everything's going to have to be here in the U.S. But I don't know. That's just my guess.
A two-parter for you. Speaking of treasuries, the bond market's been down since 21. When do you think we'll recover? And then as far as debt to GDP, what do you think happens first? Us going to 150, unfortunately, or dropping to 100 within the next maybe 5 to 7 years?
Well, that's the $50,000 question.
Yeah.
Listen, I pray we go down. How do you do that? You have to inflate away your debt quietly. That means running inflation at 4%, but not letting it go to 10% or 15%. And so it's a really tricky job that the next Secretary of Treasury and Fed governor have. I hard plane to land that if you put a gun to my head, 150 is more likely than 100. But I'm praying every night, literally as a good American, that we get to 100.